In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use an LLM to build this completely custom visual for Microsoft Power BI. And I've made some of these videos before. However, in this video, I'm going to actually show you how I prompt the LLM to get this result. Hi, my name's Ned. I work in business intelligence and I'm a Microsoft MVP with a focus in Power BI. And today I'm excited to show you how you can integrate AI into your workflow. Not only are we going to be using an LLM to build a custom visual, we're also going to be using Power BI's first third-party AI tool, MCP Engine, to help us test and debug it along the way. I am really excited for this video. I hope many of you are because you've been asking for it. And so let's go ahead and let's jump in. But wait, before we do that, if you could do me a favor and you could give this video a thumbs up and then go ahead and subscribe, it would mean a lot. All right, now let's jump in. Now, this tool that we're going to be talking about today is an MCP server. An MCP server is essentially a piece of software that allows AI tools like LLMs to connect and talk to third-party pieces of software easily. Now, I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're an MCP expert, you might have a much more nuanced definition, but at a high level, that's all they really do. MCP protocol was a protocol that was introduced by Anthropic, the company behind Claude and Claude Code, but it's been pretty widely adopted by all of the large tech companies making these foundational LLM models. For example here, I'm using Antigravity, which is Google's AI coding agent, and I'm using Gemini Pro 3 for the most part when I'm doing things like developing some of the SVG visuals that I've published on this channel. Now, in order to install an MCP agent into Antigravity, which is a little bit more complex than if you were to install one into Claude, which is Anthropic software, you have to click the three little dots right here, go into MCP servers, and then if you're installing a third-party MCP server like MCP Engine is, you then have to click this Manage MCP Servers button and then click Raw Config, at which point you can simply paste in a configuration and go ahead and hit save and then exit out and hit the refresh button. Now at this point, MCP Engine is installed, which means that we should be free to use it if we go back to the agent. Now this is a paid tool, but there is a free tier. So I'm going to ask it to connect to my current Power BI file. I'm going to go connect to my current open Power BI files. And we'll see what Gemini does. What I'm hoping to see is that it recognizes that this is a skill that MCP Engine has, and you will start to use the MCP tool. And that's exactly what it's doing right over here on the screen. Now what it did is it found the open Power BI file I still had open on my computer from my last video that I made, which is called Video Demo, where I showed you how to pull data from Jira into Microsoft Power BI. Now, I then asked it to go ahead and create a radar graph and a DAX measure as an SVG image URL in a modern style emulating modern CSS libraries. It thought about this for a little bit and then realized because I'm using the free tier of the MCP engine, it only has read capabilities, which then meant that it was able to build me a DAX measure over here, but it wasn't able to actually add it into my Power BI model because it only has read access. However, just a quick note, after I finished making this video, I sent it to Maxim, the creator of MCP Engine, just to see if he had any thoughts. And he let me know that MCP Engine should have been able to read and write this measure directly to the Power BI model, even in the free version. We think that Gemini just hallucinated. Okay, back to the content. I should be able to just take this over here, so hit the copy button, go into Microsoft Power BI, click the new measure button, and then paste it on in. Now I have this radar status bar chart in Microsoft Power BI. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to change this to an image URL. Once this is done, I'm going to click the little checkbox here, and I'm going to go ahead and insert in the new image visual right here. Go over here to Format, go over here to Style, Image, select from Data, and I'm going to drag over my radar status chart. And as you can see, it looks pretty good, but there's no actual kind of area fill, which is what I would want to see. So let's go back on over here to Antigravity and say the radar chart looks okay, but there is no area fill. Now, after a few seconds, the LLM is claiming that it fixed the image SVG. And by the way, this isn't a flaw of MCP Engine. This is Gemini Antigravity. This is what it's like building some of these SVG image URLs. So let's go ahead, let's copy its updated measure, go back over here into Power BI, and let's update the way it looks by simply clicking this little checkbox. And just like that, we now have a real nice, pretty SVG image radar. Now, this color looks probably a little bit more intense than I might like. So let's see if we can go ahead and adjust that. So I'm going to go back into Antigravity, say the color looks intense, and BTW, can you turn this into a DAX UDF? And then let's give it some references here. So I'm going to go ahead and say use these online resources, and I'm going to give it SQL BI's article on user-defined functions, which by the way, I'll link down below in the video description, documentation on the new table of function, and documentation on the new name of function, as these are both incredibly useful in writing DAX UDFs. I'm then going to click enter right here, and we will let Gemini think for a bit and come right back once it's figured out what it's going to do. Now, it did return a DAX UDF. However, what you might notice is that it's still fairly model dependent or limited to this Microsoft Power BI file. You have kind of this to do, this blocked, this testing, this active and delivered, all of which are very specific to that Jira data that I was using. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to ask it to modify the number of points in the radar graph UDF to be dynamic, and then allow me to pass labels. And then I'm also going to say none, this UDF should not be model dependent, meaning it requires a specific table layout or input. And we'll see what it goes ahead and does. Now, it did come up with a function that it says should only need a table with the values of label and then value, and then it will actually go ahead and build the radar graph dynamically, but it gave it to me as a DAX defined function. So let's go ahead and ask it to give this to me in Tyndall. Now, it struggled a little bit with the Tyndall, so I gave it an example of how to format the Tyndall, and it was still having some problems, which meant to me that it was trying to use some reserved keywords in the DAX. I couldn't find it, so I said, nope, you're still getting an error starting with rank. And then finally, I actually told it to use the MCP engine, saying, hey, test the DAX you're writing with MCP engine to confirm it's not returning an error. And that's actually what it did. It looped through over and over and over again until it actually produced something that works. However, I realized that when it converted it to a UDF, it actually broke the visual. So let's see if we can't fix this. And the way I'm going to fix this over here is by giving it a screenshot. So I'm going to hit the snipping tool right here, capture a quick screenshot, go copy, go back into Antigravity, paste it in here, and then say the radar graph looks broken, and hit send. Now, this is when you're kind of developing some of these AI visuals, a pretty easy way to get some of these things to be fixed because, well, sometimes it's hard to describe to the LLM how it's broken. Then I did just want a total count under each label. So I just said, hey, add the total count under each label, went ahead and implemented it, grabbed the DAX function right over here, hit the old copy button, and then went into the Tyndall mode right here, copied and pasted, and then hit execute, and just like that, there is our new visual. So I'll link the DAX UDF that we created throughout this video and like the actual code behind it on my GitHub down below in the video description. But I hope that you learned a lot. If you did, again, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. It helps keep me motivated, and I'll see you in the next one.